This month, I want to show Japan some love and review some imports. First up, Dracula X, Nocturne in the Moonlight. Yeah, otherwise known as Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I'm not going to waste precious screen time with examining Castlevania's extensive history. All you really need to know is that Symphony of the Night was first released on Sony's PlayStation. While it was an instant success in Japan, this one took a while to catch on here in the States. By the late 90s, many popular 2D gaming franchises were taking the leap into the third dimension, such as Metal Gear and Legend of Zelda. Castlevania would do the same eventually, but not before unleashing this brilliant piece of work at a time when sprites were losing their sway. Nocturne in the Moonlight didn't receive a stateside release for Saturn, undoubtedly due to said console's poor sales. That sucks because the Saturn saw some additions not found in any other release. Before we get into comparisons, believe me, I'll be making plenty, let's get the plot out of the way. The game picks up right where Rondo of Blood left off. Richter Belmont, a vampire hunter whose family is the sworn enemy of Count Dickhead, sends that melodramatic piece of undead Eurotrash back to hell and saves Transylvania once again. With Dracula's death and the subsequent destruction of his castle, 100 years of peace should follow. Sadly, they're not so lucky. 4 years later, Dracula's castle reappears 96 years early and Richter's off the grid. Alucard to the rescue! Yeah, Dracula's son. Alucard fought his pappy before in Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, then went off to brood quietly in his crypt and cut himself. Now he's back to hammer one more stake in his father's cold black heart and put his daddy issues to rest. When you start out, Alucard's unstoppable. With one swipe of his sword, an 8-foot-tall wolf bursts into flames. Badass. Then Death materializes and decides to strip Alucard of his weapons, shields, and talismans. Now you're weak and unarmed. What a douche. Swords and shields are now OSP. After you've busted up some demonic skeletons and zombies, you'll get a knife or a sword. Press start and go into your inventory. It may be in Japanese, but your attack and defense are clearly marked. The greater the number, the more powerful the attribute. Oh, Alucard likes to accessorize with cloaks, rings, and masks and necklaces. May seem superfluous, though they all have magical qualities that will aid you in combat or exploration. There's the rub. Unless you read Japanese, you'll need a printout to understand what all these trinkets do. If you've already conquered the American version, you'll have an easier time of it. Notice those 3 hand icons? Those are your action buttons. You can hold swords, shields, healing items, your dick, whatever. In every other version, you only have 2 hands. The third hand is reserved for healing items, nothing more. Beats having to pause the game, go into your inventory, switch out your shield with a pork chop or whatever, then continue. Much appreciated. Anyway, once you've defeated so many enemies, Alucard will level up, thus making him stronger. The amount of enemies you'll encounter is impressive. Dracula has quite the posse. Wolves, ghouls, zombies, skeletons, ghosts, bats, cats, plants, knights, on foot and horseback, blobs of poisonous vapor, yourself, and the list just goes on. Many players found they could cheat this by sticking to one area early in the game where you have an unlimited supply of fish sticks that land you big points. Yes, it's tedious, though it does make your trek into Dracula's crib more bearable. Which reminds me, this castle's fucking enormous. As you progress, you'll find areas you can't reach. They're either too high or blocked by an iron gate that's immovable. You'll wander about Dracula's House of Fine Arts trying to find an alternate route or a bathroom, up until you stumble across an orb. You're like, what the fuck does that do? Depending on the orb you've collected, you can turn into a wolf, a bat, or mist, allowing you access to those once unreachable locations. These forms have their own powers. Turning into mist can protect you from certain attacks, while the bat can use sonar to see in the dark. You can be a tremendous asshole and fly over enemies too. Like a boss. Probing the castle is fun in itself. The eerie hallways, seemingly endless towers, the catacombs, courtyards, and the library. So much variation in detail. This one corridor is a fine example. There's a great sense of depth and motion, not to mention that fucking eye watching your every move. That's wicked. Fans of the series may recognize some of these environments from past entries. It's obvious a lot of tender love and care went into designing this game. It just astonishes me. Nocturne in the Moonlight utilizes the Saturn's battery backup. There are save rooms placed throughout the castle. Step inside the coffin, save, and carry on. One thing to keep in mind is that whenever you enter the coffin, whether you save or not, it replenishes your health. Save your healing items for boss fights. Oh, the bosses. It varies depending on your stats, what kind of weapons or tactics you employ, but many go down easier than a drunken co-ed. Still, they're fucking badass. My personal favorite's this giant beast that's encased in zombies that scream. When I first saw this, my jaw literally dropped. It's beautifully drawn and deliciously twisted. Doesn't get much weirder than this, folks. The score is awesome. Some tracks may inspire comparisons to Trans-Siberian Orchestra, while others make me feel as if I'm in the Haunted Mansion. Once you pick up that controller, you won't want to put it down. There's just so much to see, so much to do. For us twits that don't read or understand Japanese, fear not. This is very import friendly. More so than Deep Fear, I feel. Now, it's time for some comparisons. Anyone familiar with the Saturn knows that its greatest strength was 2D. Not to say that the Saturn was incapable of producing gorgeous 3D titles, 2D was its #1 priority. You'd think that Nocturne in the Moonlight would kill on Saturn, with its increased resolution and added video memory. If it had made use of the 4MB RAM card, hot damn. But take a look at this. What the fuck? Fine details are sharper, colors more vibrant, gameplay is consistently smooth. This is how it should look on Saturn. Yet... detail is soft and, at times, jagged, colors are muted, and there's a considerable lag in the frame rate when there's a lot of shit going on at once. The load times are another issue. The load times were acceptable with PlayStation, yet it takes a second or two longer here on Saturn. I can live with it when you're moving from one area to the next, though it bothers the shit out of me that there's a lengthy delay whenever I happen to pause the game. I'm surprised there isn't a loading screen. Certainly takes long enough. The greatest offense is when you're walking up the steps to Dracula's tower. Wait, what's with this vestibule? That wasn't in the PlayStation version. Seriously? I know it isn't a huge deal, but why was that even necessary? When it came to 2D graphics, Saturn kicked both PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 right in the nards. The only explanation I found is that this port wasn't recoded, meaning that it doesn't take full advantage of the hardware. Why not? Oh, come on. God, even the cutscenes suffered. You want to know what really pisses me off? They were considerate enough to add a slew of extra features, such as 2 brand new areas to explore, the Cursed Prison and the Underground Gardens, and not only can you play as Richter from the very beginning, but you can now play as Maria. God, Maria's unstoppable. Now, they add all this cool shit, right? Yet they were too fucking lazy to recode the game so it could run properly on a system that was more than capable of doing so? Dick move. At least all that shitty voice acting from the American version is absent.
Go back whence you came.
After all is said and done, Do any of these negatives detract from the game? Not terribly. Yes, they're annoying. It doesn't change the fact that this is a fun game. There's plenty of replay value as well. If you played and loved the original, Nocturne in the Moonlight is definitely worth picking up.